Hi, I'm Heike and I would like to tell you a bit more about my film Enemy Engagement. I was working as a producer, a fictional producer at that time, researching the background to a fictional film about the GDR, the German Democratic Republic. When I heard about a Stasi spy wanting to meet a former friend who he reported about and who ended up in prison because of his reports, I just knew I had to make a film about these two men. I also knew that I had to direct this film myself. So Enemy Engagement ended my career as a fictional producer and started my career as a documentary filmmaker. I myself, I grew up in West Germany with the past of a fascist regime. So I was always driven by the question, what enables a dictatorship? How did so many people support a fascist regime? Then the wall came down and the country was suddenly accessible to me, where people lived in a dictatorship. And it was a dictatorship with the biggest secret service ever. So they established a system where neighbors spied on neighbors, friends spied on friends, even husbands on wives and wives on husbands, and parents on children, children on their parents. So it was the country with the most informers ever. And during its existence, its 40 years of existence, a total of 250,000 people were incarcerated out of political reasons. With a former Stasi informer and one of his victims willing to meet and revisit the past together, I thought I have a fantastic opportunity to find out what does actually turn the one person into a collaborator and the other one into a dissident. For the making of the film, one thing was really important to me. I wanted to treat both men totally the same, because I grew up in the West and I never had to choose between supporting or resisting a power of state. So I thought it was really important to not be judgmental towards the former spy Hartmut Rosinger. Being from West Germany also meant that I had no emotional scars in connection with the GDR, so it was easy for me to be non-judgmental. So my main interest was to find out about the mechanism of a dictatorship. Filming was a very difficult process for Peter Wilkow. He had to revisit his 16 years of repression in the GDR. He had to face a betrayal from a friend again. He also had to visit prisons where he was imprisoned and he felt powerless and at the mercy of his interrogators. For Hartmut Rosinger, it was a totally different story revisiting his past. He had safely buried his shame, and after the fall of the wall, it all slowly surfaced again. And the Stasi made a really good job in writing down and archiving their every move. So after the fall of the wall, Stasi officers desperately tried to destroy this evidence. However, angry citizens wanted to kind of keep those files and stop them from destroying them, because they knew they wanted to know more about the Stasi officers, the system, and also the people who betrayed them. And their anger was mostly addressed towards the former informers, because they were at the forefront of the betrayal. They were the ones who were helping the state to rid itself of undesirables. The Reunited Germany did not allow people with a Stasi past to work in public jobs, as civil servants or as teachers. So as soon as their Stasi involvement surfaced, they had to leave their job. Considering all this, I can really not be more grateful to Hartmut Rosinger that he was willing to publicly talk and to admit his guilt. I think up to this day, he is still the only one in Germany who ever did this. But it was not an easy journey for him. I remember clearly, it was the 4th day of shooting. Hartmut Rosinger came to me and he said, in the evening, he said to me, "You know, I would like to do this film, however, can I be pixelated, anonymized? And at that moment I knew I wouldn't have a film if I have to anonymize Hartmut Rosinger. However, I also trusted the process we were going through together. So I promised him, okay, if you at the end of the film still want to be pixelated, then I will anonymize you. I just trusted the process of the filming that would solve and bring up things for him. Peter Wulkow had to revisit a really painful chapter of his past. However, history proved him right. For Hartmut Rosinger, he had to kind of face the fact that he was a traitor, something he intentionally forgot. And many people are not able to face the fact that they were traitors. So it's not surprising that somehow that in Germany the suicide rate amongst former informers is actually incredibly high. So only when I started to read Peter Wulkow's and Hartmut Rosinger's Stasi Files, I realized how meticulous the Stasi really were. I was facing 30 thick folders with a total of more than 18,000 individually typed pages. And I had allowed only weeks to read the Stasi Files, but it turned into many, many months. To get to the bottom of how it all worked, I had to chronologically sort the files and then edit them down. So I ended up with a Stasi diary of Peter Wulkow's case. And this Stasi diary gave a really creepy insight into how a dictatorship actually works. It reveals how many people were actually involved in Peter Wulkow's case. There was a total of 43 people spying on him. It also reveals, and that is the really important thing for me, is it reveals that it is many people who make a dictatorship, many people with individual interests who support the system. And it's not just one spider spinning a web. So I knew that I wanted to use these Stasi files for enemy engagement. I thought it was a really good way of recreating the past from the Stasi perspective. But I also wanted to recreate the past from Hartmut's and Peter's own account. But most importantly, I wanted to capture the story that was happening between them now, which is revisiting the past together and facing a huge betrayal between them. Would they actually be able to come to some kind of reconciliation? I hope this gave you a really good insight into the background of enemy engagement, if you have watched it already, and makes you want to watch it if you haven't. Bye.